Thank you for auditing Professor Sky's Record Review, the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who has a belt around his neck. I'm going to be reviewing an album by Westside Gunn called Hitler Wears Hermes 8. Sincerely, Adolf. Now I'm pronouncing that Hermes and not the way it would be pronounced in French, Hermes, because this is an American project, even though I am a French professor. And this is my first time ever listening to one of these series of albums put out by the Griselda crew. Now, since I stumbled on Griselda while doing this channel a couple of years ago, I've tried to review every single thing that they've put out. I haven't succeeded. Benny the Butcher put out something last week, and it was quite good. I didn't have anything to say about it, so I kind of skipped it. But, it's fascinating to think that this group of musicians, this group of artists, really is the term I'd use, this group of artists is coming out with music at such a prolific rate that I'm on the 8th installment of an artist who I've already reviewed 2 albums of, and I haven't heard the other 7 installments of this series. Now, I did do a little bit of research just to figure out what the hell does it mean, Hitler Wears Hermes, right? Like, what's the idea? According to Westside Gunn himself, all the way back in 2010, I believe, when he started this series, he said he just wanted to come something that somebody, as soon as they heard, you'd be like, quote, "Yo, that ish is crazy, but fly at the same time." That's the idea. To be like Devil Wears Prada, but more shocking. And it really works. And it really works with both their sensibility of being kind of street and grimy and scary, like Adolf Hitler, while also very flashy and fancy and high concept like Hermes, right? So let's talk about this belt. This is my belt. This is a real, authentic Hermes belt made in France. And it's a little bit out of character for me because I don't really own any high fashion stuff. This was a gift to me from my friend who's a surgeon. And this was a gift to him originally for performing a knee replacement. So I didn't pay any money for this. But as a French teacher, I have all sorts of books and posters and all sorts of cultural artifacts. My students don't care about it at all. I bring out the Hermes belt. They're pretty moved by it. How do you even, every time I talk about anything Griselda puts out, I just end up saying the same damn thing. How do they keep doing it? I need to come up with new metaphors. I'm like, should we start calling Griselda the COVID of excellence, that like everything they cough on just catches excellence and just gets better and better? They just have so many great producers. The image I always use is these producers chained to a radiator in the basement, and they just have them down there. Conductor Williams, he did 3 on this. Camouflage Monk, he did 3 on these. Ad0lph did 7 of them. Every single beat is great. Some are better than others, but none of them ever go below great. It's astounding, right? Like in sports metaphors, I've used this before, but they talk about players having a high ceiling or a low floor, right? Like that's their potential. Every single Griselda beat, the floor is higher than most other rap projects' ceiling. I don't know how they do it. I guess it's just the genius of Westside Gunn himself. He just finds people and he puts things together that is just so the guest appearances on this. Stove God Cooks, Makami, Rome Streets, Jadakiss, Boldy James, Sauce Waka, Lil Wayne, Conway, Benny. Every single feature on here is amazing. There is one that stands out. One feature on this album that I think is absolutely the best, and I'm going to tell you about it very soon, but not yet. So I got something in my teeth. I don't edit the show, so you're just going to have to hang out with me while I figure this out. I think I got it. This is my favorite Westside Gunn project, and it's not even close. I didn't really like Who Made the Sunshine that much. Pray for Paris, I didn't particularly enjoy. I think the thing is, he has a couple different modes, and he has this sort of what I call the chorus mode, where he's sort of being intentionally aggravating, and a lot of that stuff. Like that kind of intentionally annoying, aggravating, engaging, but aggravating style. And it's used very sparingly here. He is used very sparingly here. And that's where he's at his best, is when he lets other people take the shine, take the center, and then he's just there to put everything together. The other metaphor that I've used quite often with Griselda, you know, most of their albums are about crack, right? About selling crack. And as always, you know, crack is a terrible thing. And in the words of King T, if crack were a monster, I'd kill it. But as a metaphor, it's great. And it's great as a metaphor for the music that they make. The final lines to this album is a quote from some movie that says, "Oh, do you know where he is? Oh, he's got the best ish." You know, like meaning he has the best crack or the best heroin or whatever on the block. And that's really what Griselda is. They just keep manufacturing hits. They keep cooking up their bricks of music and releasing it at a pace that it really feels like I'm an addict. Like they're just hooking me up with Griseldas, and I'm buying blue top, yellow top Griseldas. I'm going through all my crack vocabulary picked up from listening to all this music. On my review of Makhami, amazing album, potentially rap album of the year, I compared Westside to Puff Daddy. You know, as somebody who appears and has like good skills as a rapper, but really is a better skill as a producer, right? And kind of a coordinator and putting people together. I came up with the sort of bad joke of calling him Buff Daddy, you know, because he's from Buffalo. On this project, I'd like to make a different comparison. Somebody whose album he appeared on that I'll be reviewing later this week, if I ever finish digesting it. I think we could also call Westside Gunn Buffyé. The idea, like his insistence on fashion, his insistence on art and managing art, in addition to collecting artists and being an amazing collaborator, really puts Westside Gunn in Kanye's category. And I don't know of who else there is that is in that category. If you're a hip hop head, first of all, you probably sort of like me and sort of hate me, because I say a lot of stuff that is totally accurate, and then a lot of stuff I don't know, and you don't know how I don't know it. That's okay. I don't think there's anyone else in his category of doing this, like doing what Puff Daddy did, but with underground rappers, and sort of doing what Kanye does and doing with underground rappers. He's just a really special guy, and this album is, I think, the best that I've heard. And again, I've only heard, this is my third Westside Gunn project without the rest of Griselda. So I'm gonna give you an example of the best songs, the best example of a song on this album, okay? That is my stamp of the album, what I think to be an example of what this album sounds like. If you can only listen to one song, listen to Westheimer. I'll put a link to it up there. Do you know on this Westside Gunn album who's not really on this song? Westside Gunn is not really on this song. That's why I chose it. Not because I like it because he's not on it, but because that's an example of the kind of artist that he is. He gives the space to other people to the point where you go, where is even the guy who's putting this together? You know who else makes you often feel that way? Obviously, it's Kanye. Production by Ad0lph. He's a great producer. I'd never heard of him before. I guess he's a new guy to the sweatshop, right? He's a new guy cooking up the birds in the kitchen. Really kind of sparse beat, and it ends up being almost like a posse track, like just a very simple beat with these nice horns. And it does a lot of things this album does well. First of all, Stove God Cooks. The best thing to come out of Syracuse since ever. Just it. He's just awesome. He's just great. This album is basically a Stove God Cooks album featuring Westside Gunn. He's on so many songs, but this particular song shows off that he does the same thing that Westside does, where he has these two modes, chorus mode and verse mode. But where Westside's chorus mode is sort of intentionally Stove God Cooks is like chorus mode is this weird, like affected voice. It's like kind of funny, kind of goofy, and in this chorus, it's just a great example of it. It's a great introduction to Stove God as an artist. Screaming money ain't a thing in my whole voice. It sounds better when he does it. And I love the idea too. There's a lot of shout outs to Jay-Z on this song as the sort of creator of this entire metaphor, or at least the perfecter of this metaphor with crack and music. And then that leads right into his first verse, where he uses a little bit of his funny voice, a little bit of a straight verse, lots of clever lines. I'm not going to give you all the lines here. Got my Cuban under the Canada Goose. A lot of weird, sort of nice well-made lines leading back into his chorus. Then leads into Boldy James's verse, and I reviewed Boldy James last week. And it's funny because there's another reference to Scarface, and again, I always just wonder, eventually, there'll come a time where rappers don't reference Scarface, but I don't know where. Because even in the chorus, he talks about sticking his face in the cocaine, which I believe is imitating Al Pacino in that movie. And here he has a jacuzzi scene. And he references dog food. And thanks to the commenters of this channel, I have learned that dog food means heroin. I'm learning so much. I really like Boldy on here. He's a pretty cool guy to have as somebody who's kind of a like a spice, right? Like, so as opposed to a full album of him, having him on here is kind of like slow, kind of sleepy flow. And then it leads up to the verse by Sauce Walka. Terrible name. Sauce, and then Walka, W-A-L-K-A. Like Walka, Texas Ranger, because he's from Texas. And this is it. This is the best verse on the album. This, nobody, who I'd never heard of, okay, I'm sorry, hip-hop heads, feel free to tell me how he's not a nobody and he's been around since 1992 and I've just been sleeping because I'm just some stuffy old dumb white guy who doesn't belong in the culture and all that stuff. You can get all that stuff out of the way. I'm sure he's not a nobody. Somebody I'd never heard of, some 43-year-old stodgy white guy working in a public college in Western New York. Okay, to me he was a nobody, but this verse was just so good, was so fun. His cadence reminds me of Ludacris. I know Ludacris is kind of a joke to people, but he's really good. And he just has this like sing-songy way. And I printed out the whole verse. I wrote out the whole verse because I like the whole thing so much, but I'm not going to do the whole thing. But you really have to listen to it, you know? And it's mostly about pimping, which is one of my least favorite themes in rap, you know, as a feminist and all that. But still, just like, he comes up with all these funny lines like, do LeBron James drink Sprite? Does Meek Mill shoot dice? Did Dave Mirra ride bikes? I'm really him. They say Tricks was just for kids. Well, silly them. These think they're Biggie Smalls, but they're really Kim. Just really clever, really funny. Makes a direct reference to being on the west side of Houston, I assume. On Westheimer, that's dead proof. Set tripping. Didn't last you. These Texas diamonds on every tooth. So just this image of Texas, bringing something of a non-northern, non-eastern feel to the whole album, and it's just a great song. All three of these verses are excellent, the way they work together, and you just go, just like you've been to a... Boldy references the Albright. I don't think, please tell me hip-hop heads who are sometimes angry at me and sometimes like me, please tell me, I think the Albright might be a reference to the Albright Knox Art Gallery in Buffalo. I mean, I don't know. And if that gallery was smart, they'd put together a show and just let Griselda run it. Could you imagine how great that would be? If you're on the board of directors of the Albright Knox Gallery, hit me up. I'll help you out. I don't know. But it's the whole, all three of these things work together. And like a good gallery at the Albright Knox, it's all just being curated by Westside Gunn, who doesn't even have to make an appearance on the song for the song to be the best song that he made this year. Now I'm going to go through the rest of the album, sort of a little bit quicker than that, but in order here. It opens up with an instrumental song, Murders in Maxfields, sets the tone, ominous and lo-fi. The whole album, 3 producers, but they all in the same register, the same Griselda register, that high floor register of cool loops, 70s sounds, gristle, and dirt. Then we get to the song Blessed Times, which has A.A. Rashid just sort of talking, kind of getting people psyched up for the album. It's produced by Conductor Williams. And he says a lot of things that I like. You know, we are in the most blessed time to be alive. I think that's quite nice. The proof is in the pudding. Don't get your peas mixed up. I don't really get what that means, but I really like it. And then at a certain point he says, I'm sick and tired of it. Actually, I'm not tired of it. I just don't care about it. It reminded me of a line from Santa Claus, and I Think You Should Leave, the TV show, which I happen to like. So we have all these things in this little opening, and then there's a direct reference saying you need to have more art. He says it. Like, you need to have paintings on your wall. And I think this is an intentional reference. And between Jay-Z collecting Basquiat and Kanye for years highlighting artists, and now having Westside, we can make a really good argument that that the integration of visual arts into hip hop, which used to be limited, right, to graffiti, right? I think now with it becoming more in the realm of high art, that if it hasn't happened already or hasn't started happening already, the high art world will be completely taken over by hip hop in the same way fashion was, in the same way music was, in the same way speech was. People sometimes ask me, like, Sky, what do you mean hip hop is the most powerful force in human culture? That's what I mean. But hey, we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was the Baroque, which I've studied. Baroque was great. Okay, next track we have Mariota with the song, the album actually gets going, again with Conductor, and then Still of God Cooks showing up, this great kind of gauzy sample, a little bit janky sample. And Westside comes out and he's got like super intense, almost breathless, just really what you like about him is that energy, talking about a Coke genie and a Pyrex bottle, and he at one point says, "We attract greatness." And I think that's true. That's what I'm talking about with Griselda, this COVID of excellence. They attract greatness. And this might be the only time where Westside Gunn gives into his instinct to do a very intentionally grating chorus, because he gives the rest of them, to the most part, for Still of God Cooks, who's just a little bit more back. At the end, we have like, first we have the verse by Still of God, which matches the energy really nicely. There's kind of a Cuban links, kind of a Ghostface Raekwon thing happening here with Still of God and Westside, where just the voices go really nicely together and they match each other really quite well. And then they do a thing which they also did on the homework that I gave you, where there's just an outro that's a totally different song, totally different style. And I don't know if Alchemist is the one who pioneered this. I know he does it a lot. But it's one of my favorite things that all these guys who are chained to the radiator in the basement do. They just throw an extra like song that would be good enough for a whole rapper to do an entire song. They just throw it on there and let you deal with it. Next song is called Vogue Cover. Kind of another standard soul sample, grimy soul sample in the back. Still of God here takes over the chorus writing. It's nice, it's catchy. He's really good at writing these catchy choruses and gives this detail of crack drying. I guess it has to dry. So by the time I'm done reviewing all these albums, I will know how to cook up a brick. We'll have to see. Right now I think there's a lot of holes in my education. But he gives this detail of it drying on the Vogue covers. So just already the detail, you know, because it's a thing that's happening with all this rap about crack, is how do you go for authenticity? You know, you can't just talk about red tops and green tops anymore. You have to get very specific. You can't just talk about Pyrex. So giving this kind of detail, this isn't a universal detail of the crack trade. It's a specific detail that gives you the image of somebody's kitchen, I guess, or somebody's house, and you have the image of a Vogue magazine. And like, why is it Vogue? Does that mean this person's married, or maybe they have like why do they have Vogue in the house? Maybe it's Westside's because he needs to keep up on fashion, who knows. And just the idea of it drying, it's a really nice detail that shows it. Then there's a completely bizarre interruption in the middle, just like a totally different sample from out of nowhere. And if it wasn't for the I wouldn't have even known. I thought maybe I hit the wrong button on my iPhone and I accidentally skipped ahead to a different track. Margiela Split Toes. This one's produced by Camouflage Monk, who I'm sure I've listened to tracks produced by him before, but I really liked all three of his tracks. I think sort of like consistency, so I think Ad0lph has the most good songs on here because he has 7 and they're all good and some of them are the best. But I'm really excited to learn and follow the career of Camouflage Monk because just this song is great. It's really almost like a boom bap style drum beat happening here. And Makami's on it, and just a reminder of how much I love Makami, but how much I hate trying to buy his music. I tried to buy his, it's like $100 on eBay to buy his damn music. I get it that he's like super cool and it's hard to buy his music, but the funny thing is here, as a French professor, I was quite happy that some Swiss French person came on to explain how to pronounce Richard Mille. But in the song, it's mispronounced by Westside Gunn, who calls it a Richard Millie. So it's a watch company. So I don't know really why it's on there, but I'm happy to hear it. The song Draymond has Stove God and Rome Streets. I don't know who Rome Streets is either, but he's awesome. On the first pass, you could think this is kind of a pedestrian, like just standard Griselda beat. But if you listen carefully, there's these low guitar noises that might be played on a bass in other songs, but here it's on a guitar. And it's kind of like it's on top of this like really like nice and grimy drum beat. It's great. And it opens up with Rome Streets, who his flow, going back even before Ludacris, kind of reminds me of Das-F-X. I mean, not iggity Das-F-X, you know, but like the parts of Das-F-X where they're not saying iggity. Reminds me of that. And you can tell he's hungry, you know? Like the first lines off this song, with the right I shake a millionaire's hand, with the left I serve a junkie, walk the line, a lavish life of crime, remember the times, I had a bunkie on the tier, now my signature is a souvenir. Just like, you know that feeling you get when like rappers know that this might be it. And I got that same sense with Sauce Walka, just like, here's everything. And Stove God Cooks is on here as well, and he just shines on every single track he's on. It is great. I love these two together. Perry Perry has another Rome Streets verse on here. His cadence is really nice. It's kind of a frenetic beat, and he's kind of a calming presence over it. And this song ends with what I suppose is Westside Gunn's daughter. I don't know, Westside Pootie. It's a child at least. And this child has been on a couple of the songs. I'm of two minds of it. On the one hand, I don't like it, because like a child bragging about being rich, it's like that's inherited wealth. And I understand that Westside came from nothing and he earned all the money through his genius and through his hard effort, right? Nobody's working harder than the people of Griselda, okay? Anybody deserves to be a millionaire for working in the music business, it's him, okay? But to have the kids saying it, yeah, it's a little bit, you know, like, you know, whatever. Rupert, you know, I'm a millionaire. No, your parents are millionaires, right? But of course, on the other side, I really like it because it's rewriting the narrative that is often spread about rap artists not being good fathers, right? So he is emphasizing he's being a father and he's allowing her in here. So basically what I think I need to say is, shut up, Sky, it's funny. So I think that's what I'm going to say. I'm not going to overthink it. I'm just going to say, shut up, Sky, it's funny. Another song right now with another great weird intro by Stove God Cooks, the two registers of Stove God Cooks, the verse and the chorus. I guess it's just about cooking up crack and doing it right now, but he just does it. And it's just, I just love it. And it leads into, it has like this, the beat, it's done by Ad0lph, probably his best beat on the album. If I had a second stamp, it'd be this one. You should really listen to right now. The bass and keyboard are like in conversation, so they don't play simultaneously. Like the bass does something and the keyboard does something, and it's pretty cool. Jadakiss comes on here, talking about old rappers, and he's great on here. You know, he's just, I like the Locks. It's funny because they also make an appearance on Donda, so that's 2 Locks appearances in 1 week. Very solid. I like how he talks about there's a lot of lies on your resume. It's, you know, just it's a good way of saying that you aren't who you say you are. And then he actually makes reference to inherited money, which is funny coming right out of the Westside Pootie thing, because it's like he's talking to her. Then we get to Westheimer, which we've already discussed, and then Bash Money, almost like a Yeezus-style dirty beat. It's really good. There's some like Inception-style horns and a little piano trill. If you have a car, and you can drive the car, and you can be by yourself, and you can be driving on your way to your first day of teaching in the fall of 2021, might I suggest blasting Bash Money at 7:32 in the morning. This is a great song to be driving to. Super heavy bass, really cool. Like during the verses, there's like this sample halfway through. Remember, no one is big enough to go alone. Westside's great, and then Lil Wayne is great. Just karate with the stars. That's his first line. That's just his first line, you know. And I don't know, you know. I mean, like Lil Wayne has a lot of different gears, right? Like on the H1tler Creator album, you know, he was in 6th gear. He was absolute top gear. And when Lil Wayne's bad, I'd still put him in like 4th gear. This is maybe 5th gear. He's not quite trying to kill him like Sauce Walka was, but he does anyway because he's just that good. The beat even reminds me a little bit of Somebody's Got to Die. Does anybody else hear that Notorious B.I.G. song? I don't know. Claire's Back, produced by Camouflage Monk, has Benny and Conway, the other two members of Griselda, and it has DJ Clue on here. So this is fun. I like pointing out how Kanye changes everything all the time. We'll see if any rap albums have drums on them in a year. But having DJ Clue on here is very clearly showing Tyler, the Creator's influence of just, hey, what if we brought these guys who made mixtapes back and put them on our albums? And it's really nice. It's really like a, oh, sorry. And it's, I got mixed up in my papers here. But it's cool having DJ Clue being back again. And I realized at this point, I'm like almost through the album, and I'm not tired of Westside at all. I love his flow on this song. I love the way he sounds in the back. And it's also funny because he fails to pronounce Richard Mille again on this song. I don't know. Listen, I teach about half an hour away from Buffalo, so I'm offering free French tutoring to any member of the Griselda crew, okay? Come on out. I'll teach you how to pronounce Hermes and Louis Vuitton and, you know, all of it. And, you know, he talks about how much money he has. And he gets really into it. And then he talks about how a woman asks him if he's a millionaire. And he gets really angry. And like talking about how much money he has in his jewelry. And I will say, if Westside Gunn is out there listening to me, maybe scale it back on getting mad at people for asking you if you're rich. It shows a little bit of insecurity, you know? Like the proper answer if you're a millionaire and someone asks you if you're a millionaire is this. Yes. That is the most gangster answer you could possibly have. As opposed to like, look at my earrings, and look at my teeth, and my car, and did I mention my belt? Anyways, but it's funny because this is a song with Griselda, but then it stops halfway, and then a different beat comes in. And so I don't know, like, it actually doesn't feel like a unified Griselda song. I don't know if that's on purpose. But this other beat is like maybe the best beat on the album. It's so good. I guess it's still Camouflage. It's like a guitar-led beat, and then Conway comes in, and like the drums like come in just sort of ominously, and these like keyboards come in, and by the time Benny the Butcher's rapping, it's almost out of sync, like these keyboards kind of blaring. Pay attention to the detail work on this song. Benny the Butcher says something which I don't understand. I make December 25th feel like Friday the 13th. Hey, rap guys who sometimes like me and sometimes find me amazingly frustrating and smug. What the hell does that mean? I make December 25th feel like Friday the 13th. Next song, Spoons, is with by Conductor with Conway. And this is cool because we have sort of like another sample loop, and we have an actual meshing of Conway and Westside. This is what I like in Griselda. I like them trading bars a little bit here. The final song is 716 Mile by Camouflage Monk with Boldy. Cool kind of cymbals and guitar loop. A very interesting flow from Boldy James. And I actually have a theory. I think Boldy James wrote this verse for Donda. Because the whole verse, and on Bo Jackson, the review I did of Bo Jackson, I talked about how Boldy James didn't rap about anything other than selling crack, which of course he does on other albums, according to other people. But on that album, he didn't. But here, it's a very interesting verse where he like makes all these complicated Bible references, and it would fit really well into the tapestry of Donda. But that's just a theory. And that's a great weird outro, out of nowhere, changing and going back to that same that quote I was talking about before about have you seen him? He has the best ish, and reminding us that Griselda has the best ish on the street. And they're just going to keep making great albums. And I promise you, okay, I don't do negative reviews, but if Griselda ever falls off, I'm going to do a 30-second video. I'm going to hit play. I'm going to say, I hate to tell you, Griselda has fallen off. It hasn't happened yet. I hope it never does. Okay, well, for Dr. Kleinman and myself, there's the camera. Oh, also, Hitler? Did he have to pick Hitler? You know how confusing it is trying to explain this album to my wife? She's like, is he for Hitler? I'm like, no. No, I mean, he's an African-American guy, so. Well, why Hitler? Okay, there's the camera.